Hey everyone, I'm Michael, and welcome to the second part of this little mini-series I'm doing on the switch to macOS. Apologies if that didn't flow very well. I have a migraine right now. It is not fun, and Windows is going to exacerbate it, so I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as I can. So this is the part of the series where I tell you guys everything I would typically do throughout the day on Windows, and why it is an absolute mess and completely painful for me to do. So we're in Windows right now. We're on my main game dev PC, and, things are looking pretty clean. I got my, solid black background for the sake of recording this video. Usually it's either some sort of Pokemon trainer that I like, or, some sort of Sonic character that I like. Depends on the day. Recently it's been Chet the Hawk, but in this case, for copyright reasons, it's going to be a black background. And I've got a lot of things installed on this system, mostly games, mostly game dev tools, a little bit of video production stuff, some music production stuff, but, this system is used, obviously. And you can see that I've built a little bit of a home on my computer. This is my main system. It's not a VM, it's not being virtualized in any way, so if it's slow, it's nothing to do with being in a virtual machine or, being bottlenecked by that. It also doesn't use a hard drive as a boot device, so if it's slow, it has nothing to do with that. If there's slowdowns, it is completely to do with Windows. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, let's see what's going on here. So, first thing I would typically do after making a cup of coffee is I would hop into Unity, like I did in the previous video. And I'll type in Unity, it'll take a little bit to load up the first time around before Windows prefetches it, and then now we have all of my projects, and that's great. So as I hop into a project here, I have to zoom in, and so that means opening magnifier. And we're going to press socially distant. Oh, project's already open because this is the second take, but let's pretend that it wasn't already open. Now we're in Unity, and, we're good to go. I've got the game open, ready to start working on it, okay? Few problems here. First main issue is with how Windows handles a lot of its UI. See, in Windows, we have the Universal Windows platform, which is your Metro apps, as they would have been called back in Windows 8. That's going to be your things like your settings, your Windows Store, even your Start menu, and some basic core applications in Windows. A lot of those are going to be UWP, but a big portion of them are still Win32, or WinAPI, or Windows Forms, or WPF. And these four older technologies do not follow the same guidelines as UWP. UWP is very mobile first, because that's what it was sort of designed for. It was designed to allow the same user interface to work on Windows Phone, on Xbox, and on Windows on the desktop. That's what UWP is for, Universal Windows Platform. So you could write the same app and have it run across all Windows platforms, right? And it received features like dark mode, which allows you to set up a global dark theme. And all the apps should respect that. It's like you would on Android or iOS. Win32, WinAPI, WPF, and WinForms all do not support that. And if they do, it's opt-in on a per-app basis, which means that your application has to actually support it. So, what this translates to is a lot of applications just not opting into that API, so that they can support older versions of Windows that didn't have it. So in the case of Unity, Unity is built using IM GUI and a whole bunch of other stuff that's, you know, used across a few game engines. It's a game engine, so obviously it's gonna have its own user interface system and stuff like that to facilitate game engine stuff. And Unity has a dark mode that is set by default. It also has a light mode, and we'll get into that, but it also has dark mode that is used by default. Except Unity doesn't use IM GUI or whatever UI system it uses for menus and context menus. So context menus being these right-click menus, and menus being the strip at the top of the screen with your file, edit, view, all that stuff. These are done using, of all things, Win32. And because Win32 doesn't support dark themes by default, these are obviously light mode, despite my main system having dark mode enabled. And this may be a very petty thing to complain about, but for me, it is a huge accessibility concern. I cannot read text on a light background. It's just not possible. It's not difficult. It's impossible. I can't read it, period. I don't have difficulty reading it. I flat out can't. So what I have to do, anytime I want to create a game object, or cut, copy, paste, or rename something, or duplicate something, or create assets, or, you know, go into my project settings, save, open, create a new scene, anything, basically anything in this menu bar, what I have to do is I need to invert the colors, which makes the rest of Unity's UI impossible to read, because now it's light mode because it's inverted. Go into the menu, do what I need to do, and then, you know, once I'm done, turn off color inversion. And if I'm particularly awake and doing it slowly, then that's very easy to do. But oftentimes what happens is I will be in a state of flow, in the zone, working on my game, as I should be, and I will need to right-click on something, and I will forget that it is a light mode context menu. And I'll go, oh shit, I can't read this. So I'll go to invert the colors. Then the menu will close. So after realizing that, I have to go back into the menu, do my thing, and get out of the menu and turn off color inversion. But then, here's the other issue with this. If I go and open, I'm just gonna have to look for a script here to open. We'll go scripts, and then I guess audio, and the audio settings receiver. We'll open this in Writer, and this is going to open up on my other monitor, which has a Chet the Hawk background. So that's we're gonna give me a minute here to turn that background off on my other display, and then I will get back to you guys. Oops. See, I actually got asked by Raphael, the former lead programmer of Restitched, why I use a background on my IDE, and that's a question that is very simply answered by because I want to, but in this case, it kind of bit me in the ass, because now I need to struggle to turn it off with the magnifier turned off, because otherwise I will end up recording what I am doing and getting hit by copyright. So, after struggling to turn off the Hawk background, okay, so, in JetBrains Writer, it does things a little differently. It doesn't use native dialogue, or doesn't use native Win32 menus. It uses its own themed menus, which, thank you, JetBrains, for doing that. But you shouldn't need to, but thank you. So oftentimes what I will need to do is I'll need to right-click on some code, and with it highlighted, select Read Aloud Selected Text. And that's how I read code, because I'm blind. Like, I can pick up on the syntax and stuff like that from the layout, but as far as actually reading this, due to my condition, it's not easy. So that's the thing I do a lot. And sometimes if I'm, not quite awake, I will forget that, unlike Unity, Rider actually themes things properly, and I will accidentally invert colors when right-clicking on my code, and then now I can't see the right-click menu, and it trips me up. And these two things are really petty, of course, for a normal user, but for me, again, it is a legitimate concern for me, because what this means is I'm wasting 1-2 seconds of having to get out of the menu and invert my colors or uninvert them, whatever, each time I go into the menu. But because I'm going into these menus a lot throughout the day, those few seconds every now and then add up to potentially an hour of wasted time that I could have done a lot more programming in that hour. And that's a problem. If I'm not wasting 2 seconds every few minutes going into the right-click menu and having that little rigmarole there with the inverted colors, how much further along could Socially Distant be in development over the past year? Or even Restitched? Put that into perspective. And that really bothers me. And it's not just right-click menus and stuff like that that this is a problem with. A common thing that Unity will do is if I, start to modify a scene, like if I see what I did, I right-clicked on the object, forgot that I needed to invert colors, inverted my colors, and the menu closed, and that tripped me up. Like, that actually made me mad. But either way, say I modify the scene. This is going to mark it as dirty, and thus an asset that needs to be saved before I close it. So, in Socially Distant, I might want to go ahead and modify the game's prologue scene, which means collapsing resources, some scripts, going into scenes, and we're going to go into the prologue scene, and Unity's going to pop up a dialog box saying, hey, this scene has changed, do you want to save it? And this is a light-themed dialog box, so naturally I have to invert colors. And in this case, I don't want to save, because maybe I was just doing some testing that's no longer necessary, and, I wasted like 2 seconds there toggling color inversion that I could have saved and could have used for something more productive. And that adds up after a while. And it spills outside of Unity, because this is not a Unity problem. This is a Win32 problem. This is a problem with Windows having to support legacy software problem. This is a user interface consistency problem throughout Windows as an operating system. Because here's the thing, up until then, we've only been inside Unity. But what if I need control panel? Notice how that property dialog is light-themed. What if I just plugged in a USB drive and want to partition it for some reason? There's a light-themed control panel. And what if I want to... Okay. This is a whole other topic. I want to go and do a simple thing. I have a TrueNAS server sitting, like, right next to me, like, 3 inches away from my knee right now. And oftentimes, I want to go on there and grab some sort of backed up asset for Socially Distant, or Restitched, or maybe it's just something that I need. It doesn't matter. Point is, I need to do something extremely simple, that is, map a network drive, get a file off of it, and unmap the drive. Why would I want to unmap the drive? Well, in case I accidentally infect my system with malware, I don't want it spreading to shared drives. That's a common security practice within Windows. If you know what you're doing, and you run lots of malware samples inside a virtual machine, you do not keep your shared folders connected to it. And I take that a step further by not keeping my shared folders connected on my main system for the off chance that, God forbid, I get hit with some sort of malware that decides to jump over the network. So, how does this all work? So first things first, I need to get to this PC. Now you would think that we're in the search screen right now, we're in the start menu, and to get to this PC, it's a folder called this PC, and I can search and open folders. You would think. If I type this PC into the search. Now, keep in mind, remember, I'm blind, I can't see the search results, so I am counting on the first result being what I searched. Hit enter. And I get taken to settings. That's not what I searched. I don't understand how any of this relates to this PC. In fact, it's literally taking me to recovery settings. Why recovery settings? I don't know. But this is absolutely not what I want. Now you might be thinking, okay, well if it doesn't accept this PC, then surely it's going to accept the old form of this PC, which was computer in Windows 7. So if I search computer, it takes me to a completely different settings page that is still not this PC. In this case, it appears it took me to just the system category. And you can see here that it is not your tower, right? But that's not what I wanted to see. I wanted to see this PC folder in File Explorer. Now guess how you have to get there. You have to specifically click or search File Explorer, which will then take you to the quick access screen. Then you have to go to this PC. And hope like hell you're not drunk or have a migraine and accidentally click network while streaming. Anyway, that aside, that's just getting to my list of drives, and now I need to map a network drive. Well, how do you do that? Well, I would think right-clicking on the file view, and there you go, add a network location. Except this takes you to a different wizard that's more meant for mapping like FTP file shares and stuff like that. This is not for mapping Samba file shares on TrueNAS. And in fact, you can technically do that. Like if I do the /TrueNAS / can't remember if it's archive or Richie, but either way, we'll try that. And it'll let me name it and all that stuff. And there's the drive. But here's the thing. This is not mapped as a network drive. If you look at the path, we're in network, followed by TrueNAS, followed by Richie. This is a network location mapping, which is different than a network drive mapping. The difference is you can't, say, navigate to this through command line and interact with it. Like if I wanted to clone a Git repository into this, can't do that. Because it's not mapped as a local drive. So I don't want that. I don't want to add a network location. I want to actually map it. Also, you can tell the difference between a network location and any network drive by, well, a network drive wouldn't have a folder for an icon. It would have an actual hard drive icon. It would have a drive letter, and it would have a disk quota on it, so you can see how much space is left on the drive. And none of that's the case here. So I actually want to remove this. If I can figure out how to, I'm just going to hit delete. There we go, it's gone. And, okay, so the next place I would look, intuitively, is I would look in the toolbar, and I would go to this ... menu, because I can reasonably assure you that view is not going to have the option, sort is not going to have the option, and none of these icons are going to have the option because they're all grayed out. And so I would think the next best thing would be this 3 dots menu, which is kind of your miscellaneous menu in most mobile apps, so I would intuit the same thing in Windows. But what do we have? Well, first of all, we have undo, which I don't know why this is in the menu. This should be in the toolbar. We have connect to a media server, We have adding network location. We have map network drive. This time it showed up! I don't know how I got it to show up, because here's what normally happens. Here's what normally happens when we go in here. Alt F4. Come on, it's... the Explorer's gonna crash, isn't it? Where did it go? What the hell? Okay. Right, here's what normally happens with this PC and that menu. So we're back here. Weird. This is the same window as before, that's why. Okay. Alright, so let's open this PC. And go to the three dots menu. And as you can see, the menu is completely different. We have undo. We have pin to quick access. We have select all. We have select none. We have invert selection. We have properties, and we have options. Why do we have all of this? As a programmer, I just figured out what's going on, but that's because I'm a programmer and I can probably visualize the code going on here. What went on here is when I clicked on this PC, right here, it became the focused item. And this three dots menu is acting as a context menu for that item. In a way, it's not the context menu, but this is still a contextual menu based on what I'm selecting. And I suspect that what happened was, when I clicked into this UI with my left click, into the main view, the context switched. No? Okay. So then what was it that did it? Was it clicking on a drive? No. No, that didn't do it either. Okay, so that didn't do it. What about clicking on this header? Nope. Nope, I can't for the life of me figure out how I got it to show in the menu. But either way, I was somehow able to get the map network drive option to show in the three dots menu, but I can't reproduce that. I can't get it to show up again. I don't know how I did it. But all that to say that it does not show up by default when you're in this PC, and you think that it would. And even if it was behaving as a contextual menu for whatever selected, well, I had this PC selected. And if I right-click on this PC, there's map network drive. That's what you have to do. You have to right-click it. Otherwise, it will not consistently show up. So, you know, I can type in my drive URL, and... well, this is a bug with this session of Windows. It is not actually mounting that drive. So it won't show in Windows Explorer, and for some stupid reason, I cannot get it to show up. But if I can prove that it did actually mount, because if I go to the Z drive on here and do a dir, there's a directory listing for that network drive. So it's definitely there. Windows will generally, for local drives, it'll start at C and work its way down the alphabet, but for network drives, it'll start at Z and work its way up. So that's how I know. That's just how it works. But yeah, that's really backwards. It should not have taken me that long to figure out how to map a network drive. I don't know why. So that's frustrating. Already I've wasted a whole bunch of time, not counting narrating, trying to figure out how to map that damn network drive, and I've completely forgotten why I wanted to map the network drive. So now I'm back doing some other thing, and like 2 hours later I'm gonna realize, oh crap, I needed that file, and then suffer through this whole thing again. Right? Really, really annoying. Really bad conveyance. Really bad continuity, and really bad consistency in the UI. That's 3 of the 4 C's. Control is the next one. The four C's relate to usability of an operating system UI, and it's not a thing I made up. There's a YouTube video that I will link in the description below to a video made by someone else a long time ago about Windows 8 and its many problems. This is the Windows 11 version of that, with actual practical demos of it on my main system. So, you know, continuity, conveyance, and consistency all failed here. Consistency, light versus dark mode, and, you know, UI following the same language across different UIs and programs, and even the operating system itself, and conveyance and control, or conveyance and continuity. How the hell do I map a network drive? How do I get to this PC? How do I... all that stuff. You somehow have to know where to look. That's the problem here. Control is the next one. An operating system should give you control. It should not control you. It's a fundamental law of operating systems. And I'm going to call it a law. I don't even care. It is a law. Your operating system, its job is to interface with your hardware and give you, the user, access to that hardware in a way where you can do productive things with it. It does the heavy lifting of talking to your graphics card and all that stuff, and talking to your CPU and your RAM and your motherboard and your BIOS and your USB devices, your PCI devices, all that crap. So that software on your computer doesn't have to concern itself with what hardware you have, and it can just work. And past that, your OS gets out of your way, lets you do work, lets you be in control. And Windows fails horribly at doing that. How many of you guys have had some sort of infuriating issue with Windows? Like, how many times has it rebooted on you to do an update that it honestly didn't need to do right that second? It wasn't an emergency. It just wanted to do the update and said, you know what? No, screw you. I'm gonna do it. No, you're not gonna use your computer. You're gonna close all your stuff. You're gonna save your changes. I might not even give you a chance to because it's 3 a.m. and you're asleep. I'm going to update now, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's part of control. But I'm not going to talk about those issues. I'm going to talk about other issues with control in Windows 11 that infuriate me as a programmer and as a blind person. Okay? Alright. Okay, so, as a programmer, I use the IntelliJ family of IDEs. So that's your Rider, your PyCharm, your WebStorm, all that stuff, all the JetBrains stuff. And that's what I'm using on this monitor to program Socially Distant, and also Restitched, and a whole bunch of other stuff I work on. I really love the JetBrains IDEs because they give me a lot of control. I even have this really pitch black theme that makes my code that much more easy to read, even if I still need a screen reader. Really like it. Why am I mentioning that? Well, because the easiest way to get MS Build and the .NET tools, which you need for Unity, is to install Visual Studio. It's the IDE made by Microsoft. That's how you get the .NET tools on Windows. You can install them as a standalone package, but honestly, I don't feel like doing that. I'd rather just install Visual Studio and have all those tools there for me. Maybe that's a mistake on my part. I don't know, and honestly, I don't care. I just want my programming to work. And here's the thing, when you install Visual Studio now, this is as of Visual Studio 2022, it was not like this beforehand, but Visual Studio 22, Visual Studio 2022, first of all, when I typed in apps on in my search field, it took me to the system settings, which I don't know why. It should have taken me to apps, conveyance, control, or conveyance and continuity. Anyway, if I go to apps, then I go to default apps, and then we scroll down until we find Visual Studio, Microsoft Visual Studio 2022. look at all of these file types and URL associations that Visual Studio just takes up when you install it. Look at them. There's at least 4 pages, if not more, of like several dozen programming languages that Visual Studio associates itself with. This is a 4K monitor at 100% scale. I don't know how much is in this menu, but it's too much. And here's the problem with this. I only need Visual Studio for its build tools. I don't use it as an IDE. I use the JetBrains tools. So what happens is, and I've gone in here and done this for at least C#, the stuff that matters. What happens is, Visual Studio will take all these programming language files, and config files, and database files, and debug symbol files, and all this stuff that, it happens to be compatible with. And because it lists itself as its default program, if I open those files, Visual Studio is going to watch. It's going to make me sign in with a Microsoft account and do all that whole let's get started rigmarole that I don't need it to do because I don't use Visual Studio. And so I have to go in here, find the specific file association, because you can't go and set all of them at once in bulk. You just can't do that anymore. And find the file, reassociate it with whatever IDE I use, or whatever program is supposed to have access to it, and hope like hell it worked. And you might recognize this problem if you use any browser other than Microsoft Edge, because if we scroll up to Microsoft Edge, if I can find it, hang on. It is the exact same issue, only this time with your default browser. And even then, it's gone and reset my settings! These two should not be Microsoft Edge. So what do I have to do? I have to go in and reassociate them. Why the fuck is my operating system, without my consent, resetting my settings? Where's Chrome? I have Chrome installed on here, I can tell you that right now. I've been watching YouTube. Where's Chrome? Actually... wait, this is an MHT... What the hell is an MHT file? But yeah, I do not see Google Chrome. Oh well. That might be why. Anyway. Why is Windows even able to reset settings without my consent? I should be able to set this up the way I want it to be, and have it left that way. Windows does not give me control of my computer. It controls my computer. And this is even more evident. Have you ever done a Windows clean install, or just bought a new computer, or built a new computer? Either way, you just install Windows. You go through the out-of-box experience, and if it's an old enough build, you create your local account, because nobody wants a Microsoft account. But if it's not an old enough build, you create your Microsoft account, you sign in, you're on your desktop, you've installed all your core applications, and you're getting some work done. And then like a week or so later, you turn on your computer, you log in, and it just takes 18 years to get through the login screen. And when you finally do, you get blasted in the face by, in Windows 10, a blue screen, and in Windows 11, a white screen, saying, hey, let's finish setting up your PC. And you get 2 options. And you get 3 prompts. The 3 prompts are, set up OneDrive, set up Microsoft Edge, and set up privacy settings. Things you've already, no doubt, done in the out-of-box experience, or later on, during installing your core applications. And it gives you 2 options. Do this now, or remind me in 3 days. And, you know, it's saying, hey, let's finish setting up your PC. I have a really big problem with the way they phrase that, because they're treating you as if you haven't finished setting up your PC, when in reality you have. You know, you've gone in and set up your privacy settings the way you want them to be. Hopefully, all of them are set to no, right? No inking and typing data being sent to Microsoft, no Microsoft microphone training data for Cortana, no advertising IDs, no tracking, none of that crap. If you have your diagnostic info set to basic, I love you. And, you know, you've probably gone through and said no to all that stuff. You probably don't use OneDrive. If you do, then whatever, it's fine. Use it. But if you don't, you've turned it off. And if you don't use Microsoft Edge, you've probably gone in and set your default browser for every single file type ever, and every single 1990s protocol ever to Google Chrome or Firefox or Brave or whatever. And you've set up your PC. You're done setting it up. So why is Microsoft saying, let's finish setting up your PC? Well, it's because that user interface is going to force you back into using Microsoft Edge, back into using OneDrive, and it's going to force you to turn back on all of that privacy crap you turned off. And it's going to force you. And I used to get into this ritual of every time I saw that screen, I would force power off my computer. And I would log back in and everything would be fine. But apparently that was a bug, and they fixed it in Windows 11 22H2. Which is probably how a lot of my settings got reset back to Microsoft Edge. Why did they do that? Oh, I know why, but that's why I have a Mac now. So yeah. That's really annoying. Why is this thing, Windows? Why do you keep making me, or why do you treat me like I don't know how to set up my own PC? Is it because you disagree with how I want to use my computer? Well, screw you, it's my computer. If you want to use it a certain way, then you can pay the bills. Anyway. Okay. That aside, let's start to get into some accessibility stuff. Because the next few things I'm going to nitpick about are things you're probably never going to notice about Windows 11 and Windows in general. Because most likely, some of you who watch my videos are blind, or some form of disability that requires some assistive technology, and that's totally great. I am going to fight for you guys right here. But I'm willing to bet that the vast majority of you are not, and have probably never run into these issues. So for you guys, you're going to learn a few things about Windows. I'm going to explain why these things infuriate me. Okay, so, first things first. Back to Unity. When we were in these right-click menus, I want you to pay attention to the menu as I hover over menu items with my mouse. Pretend the mouse cursor is not there. Okay? What menu item am I hovering over right now? Again, pretend the pointer's not there. Can you tell me what menu item I'm hovering over? I'm willing to bet that quite a few of you cannot. If you can, then congratulations, you have some sort of superhuman eyes. Because they don't highlight the active menu item anymore. They don't. Except in UWP applications, they do. Even if it's really faint, it's still there. But, you know, in Win32 applications, they don't. They don't highlight the active menu item. Now, even in Windows Vista and 7, where the highlight was subtle, it was still there. There was a faint border you could see. But in here, there's nothing. Nothing! My only indication is to look at the mouse cursor, and you know, I can't always see this mouse cursor, because it's, in this case, it's white on white, or black on black. And yes, there's a border, but, you know, I'm not always able to see it. If I'm moving quickly, I cannot see this mouse cursor. I don't know where it is. I just know it's moving. And eventually I'll have to slow down, and you know, this really slows me down, not being able to see what menu item I've hovered over. It's really annoying. And that's if magnifier isn't getting in the way, because in Windows, magnifier is its own program. It's built into Windows as an accessibility tool, but this window is its own executable file, c:/windows/system32/magnify.exe, and it is not built into Windows Explorer. Now that gives you a few pros and a few cons. The pro is that it can run pretty much at any point during Windows being booted. It's obviously not going to run in WinPE, but it will run in the out-of-box experience, it will run in the login screen, it will run during Control-Alt-Delete, and it will run during UAC prompts, and it will run on the desktop. And really wish it ran in WinPE, but WinPE is done with no hardware acceleration, and it's meant to be extremely lightweight, so it can fit in a RAM disk on even the most low-end computer, so I understand that to an extent. But, yeah. This is its own separate program. The con of it being its separate program is, well, here's the thing. When you install a whole bunch of stuff on your computer, Spotify, Discord, Steam, Logitech G-Hub if you have a Logitech mouse or keyboard, GeForce Experience, AMD Adrenalin if you have an AMD GPU, I'm trying to think of some other things. You might have Origin, or Uplay, or the Epic Games Store. You might have Unity, in which case the Unity licensing service. Either way, you're going to have quite a few startup applications that run when you log in. And Magnifier has to behave as one of them if you want it to start at boot. Because it's not built into Windows Explorer, it gets less priority. So that means that depending on how your computer's feeling, how Windows is feeling, Magnifier will have to fight with like 50 other programs before you can actually zoom into the screen and actually see what your computer's doing, which is really annoying. That's not all. Let's click on Unity, because I'm done with the magnifier window. Oh look! The magnifier window is always on top. It does not go away. Now in Windows 7, when this version of the magnifier was first implemented, what it would do is when the window went out of focus, but was not minimized, it would collapse into a magnifying glass that would follow you in the corner of the screen. And you could easily click that magnifying glass to reveal the window again. And that was really nice, because it meant that if I needed to zoom in and out a lot, I could just click on the magnifying glass, do the thing, and then let go of the window. And that was great. But as you can see, they've removed that. The magnifier just stays in one static place in the UI as a window. But it's an always on top window for no reason. So if you're the type of person who uses magnifier and uses it through the UI, you're going to want this window open pretty much all the time, right? So you can access it. Except, excuse me for a second, I gagged at having to use Windows for a prolonged period of time. Except, let's say that it's dragged over here, and then we go into JetBrains Writer. Apparently I can't click. This is annoying. Okay, JetBrains Writer. And let's say for a minute that we want to write some code. And you know, I need to keep magnifier on the screen so I can do some stuff. Put it somewhere where I can access it while zoomed in. Okay? Because it's an always on top window, what's going to happen is okay, this isn't a massively large file, so we'll go somewhere where there is a lot of code. You know, we start to scroll down, and the magnifier is going to cover some things that you might want to read. Isn't that annoying? Like, there's no way to get rid of it. your only option is to minimize it and only reopen it when you need to. And that's generally what I do. And so it's gone. But what happens is, because I typically like to think that the magnifier isn't its own window, even though it is, I might want to tab over to Unity, right? And to do that, I would hit Alt-Tab. And logically, if you look at these two monitors side by side, we have Rider, then we have Unity. These can be the most recent windows in my Alt-Tab order, right? So because magnifier was restored as a window earlier, no, magnifier is the most recent in the tab order. So hit Alt-Tab, and there's magnifier. Go to tab back, and it doesn't minimize because it's an always on top window. And so I end up doing this weird thing where I minimize the magnifier, go to Alt-Tab, comes back, it annoys the hell out of me. Why the hell are you open? And then I will have to kind of double Alt-Tab, and I'm in Unity. And then Alt-Tab back to Rider, and then, you know, everything's fine. But occasionally, sometimes it'll be a weird situation where just unminimize magnifier here. Okay, so magnifier opened for some reason because maybe Windows forgot my Alt-Tab order. I don't know. But either way, magnifier's open. I will realize, okay, you were open for a while. I'm going to minimize you. Go back to Rider and, you know, work for a little while and need to tab back into Discord or Unity or something, and I'll hit Alt-Tab. Magnifier's back. God damn it. Minimize it. And then I'll be particularly tired and forget to do the Alt-Tab, double-tab thing. Finally realize, okay, double-tab, back in Unity, and then I'm still tired. I'll double-tab again, and there's magnifier, and I've completely screwed up my tab order, and this time, luckily, I was only going between two applications, and I was able to get it back working. That's really annoying. Like, I should not have to fight like this with Alt-Tab. And unfortunately, I do. That's the problem with Windows, and that's the problem with the magnifier being its own application that runs in the taskbar. And need I remind you, it takes up space in your taskbar, so it is very possible for me to accidentally unminimize this by clicking it. If I say, go to click on a freaking file explorer here, and I miss a little bit, and then all of a sudden I've opened magnifier. It's so annoying. And also, another big problem I have with magnifier is that the zoom on it is incremental, in that when I click this button, it zooms in by a factor of 100%. So I went from 600% to 700%, out of 800, 900, 1000, 1100, 1200, 1300, 1400, 1500. And that's the max. Or 1600 is the max. Okay. Weird number to max out at, but okay, whatever floats your boat, Microsoft. Now I have keybinds for this on my mouse because I have the Logitech G600, and I have two keys dedicated to zoom in, and I have two keys, zoom in. This is zoom out, this is zoom in, and it's really intuitive for me. It's really ergonomic that way. I can hit it with my thumb. Don't have to move to the keyboard. The problem is, I can set them up to be continuous, but that can be buggy in certain situations with the driver. Sometimes it'll get stuck pressed, and then I will be constantly zooming out. And I'll zoom back in, and it'll zoom me back out, and it's I have to reboot every time that happens. So I don't set it as continuous. So I have to press it over and over again if I need to zoom in a lot, and over again if I need to zoom out a lot, which is really annoying for me and for you guys. So if you remember in the previous video, I did the little zooming thing in Mac, and by holding Control down and scrolling up, doing a pretty decent scroll up too, I was able to zoom right into max, and then right back out, almost immediately. with the scroll wheel, and that's really wonderful. That allowed me to be really quick, because I can, maybe if I overshoot it a little, I can zoom out a little, but either way, it's smooth, it's not incremental, I don't have to keep pressing the same button over and over again. There's no way to do that in Windows. No way, because you can't customize the hotkeys, and there is no default hotkey for the scroll wheel. There just isn't. That's annoying. And here's the other thing. I'm going to play a game. A game by Matt Troviani, who I look up to, called Hacknet. Okay, first things first, I hit enter, and I have no idea if Hacknet's loading, because the start menu did not close. We'll get to that. But once Hacknet actually does load, it might screw up my recording when it changes the resolution, but there Hacknet goes. And, magnifier, the way... Okay, so I've actually had to go into Hacknet, and thank you, Matt, for implementing this as a setting in Hacknet. If you go to settings, by default, it is set to full screen. And Hacknet is it's built using FNA, and the way FNA works is full screen. FNA, XNA, and monogame, they all behave the same way. Full screen is a toggle, and you can either be exclusive full screen, which means that the operating system will actually change the resolution of your monitor running the game to match what the game wants. You can have borderless full screen, which is what Hacknet is doing right now, where what Hacknet will do is if you set the resolution to the same as your monitor, Hacknet will go ahead and go into borderless full screen, because there's no point rendering the window border, because you're not going to need it. And then there's windowed mode, which is what Hacknet will do when I decrease the resolution some. And what I'm trying to get at here is, despite the fact that Matt seems to have hard-coded resolutions for some strange reason, I don't know why, FNA does have an API for querying them. I hope he's learned that by now in his future games, please. Either way, when I was in full screen, what happens is, I'm not going to save, but let's pretend that it did put me into full screen. This is what I will see on my monitor, despite me being zoomed in. Let's pretend I'm zoomed in 1600% right now. Hacknet will still look like this. Completely unreadable. And even then, there will be a mouse cursor, because Magnifier does something weird with Win32 and the Windows APIs, and games are unable to render the mouse cursor while Magnifier is open. I've had to debug this in game engines I've written, where the mouse cursor just would not render for whatever reason, despite me telling ALFW or whatever to display the mouse cursor. It's because Magnifier. And that's why in a lot of my games, I don't implement exclusive full screen at all, because it's an accessibility nightmare. It genuinely is. That's why I don't play PC games often, because a lot of them don't support borderless full screen, and if they don't, I cannot play them. I cannot even play them enough to get to the settings menu to turn off full screen. I had to reverse engineer Hacknet and figure out how it stores its config file so I could go in and fix it. I mean, I've had to do that with Cyberpunk 2077 too. That's horrible. That is not accessible at all. And it's not Hacknet's fault. It's not any game developer's fault. It's Windows. There's no reason Magnifier has to do that. No reason at all. Okay. Okay. Remember in the previous video, when I opened up Spotlight and I typed in Unity Hub, hit enter, and waited for Unity to open. I was trying to hint at something, and this is that something. Remember when I opened Hacknet, how the start menu did not close until Hacknet's console opened. Hacknet's not the only game that does that. Let's try Saints Row 4. Shout out to Alexander Mejia, also a good friend I look up to. He used to do the captures for Saints Row 4 and its trailers. It's doing the same thing. I typed in Saints Row and hit enter, and okay, now I'm in Saints Row. But, you know, the thing is, when I typed in Saints Row and hit enter, what I expect to happen is that the start menu will say, okay, you've picked an application, I'm gonna launch it, and I'm gonna close. But that's not what the start menu actually does. What it does is it waits for the process to create its main window. Which is why as soon as Saints Row and its game engine boots up and, you know, creates the game window and gets it all set up, the start menu closes. But until then, you hit enter and nothing will happen. Now you might be thinking, well, that's just tough. That's petty, deal with it. No, because here's the thing. That means there's no visual indication whatsoever that when I hit enter, the operating system listened to me. I have no clue as to whether Hacknet, or Saints Row, or Steam, or Mirror's Edge Catalyst, or Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto 4, Grand Theft Auto 5, Cyberpunk 2077, City Skylines, Cities XXL, you know, any of these games that run on Steam are actually launching when I hit enter. Because keep in mind, I'm blind. I can't read this crap. I have no visual clue whatsoever what I typed is actually correct. So I'm hoping like hell that when I hit enter, I open the right thing, and that I opened anything at all. Because what happens is, the behavior of having no results is generally going to be to do a web request and go to Bing. Even that is more of an indication that I've screwed up than typing Hacknet, hitting enter, and nothing happening. And I have to wait and hope like hell it launches. Like, this is horrible. At least in macOS, Spotlight will close, and if the icon is in my dock, it'll bounce for a few seconds. That's an indication. That's a really big indication that something's happening. So, Microsoft, fix it. This is obviously a bug. On the topic of really annoying things with Windows, one of the things I've been running into occasionally, and I'm surprised that it has not happened in this video, is occasionally I will click on something in my taskbar, like for example Chrome, and it will do nothing. Okay, this time it worked. But occasionally I will click on something and it'll do nothing. And it actually happened there. I clicked Google Chrome and nothing opened. Now sometimes this will happen repeatedly, and what will happen is File Explorer and Windows Explorer will crash and restart. As a programmer, I cannot explain why Explorer would ever crash. Especially on a system like this, where I have 64 gigs of RAM, Ryzen 7 3700X, an RTX 2060 Ti. No, not Ti, that doesn't exist. RTX 2060, sorry, I'm tired. I'm thinking of my GPU upgrade that I want to do eventually. And, you know, NVMe for my boot drive and all that stuff. My computer ain't slow. Windows is just buggy as hell. The only way I can explain Explorer crashing randomly like that is either I have malware, which I've done scans, I do not. I have corrupted system files, unlikely. I do sfc/scan now regularly. Or Microsoft does not test their code. And I can tell you that they cannot test, or they do not test their code, because another infuriating thing is, since Windows 10 RTM, Magnifier has had a bug in it, a critical accessibility bug, in every single update until Windows 11. That's several years of updates breaking Magnifier. First, it would do this weird thing where if you had an UWP application open and you hovered over it with the mouse, everything in the screen would go black except for the rectangle on the screen where the UWP app would be if you weren't zoomed in. That was a bug. They fixed it. Then there was a bug where if I go into Control-Delete, or I go to lock my screen, or have to log in, Magnifier would be open, and it would have keyboard focus, and I would hit Enter on the login prompt, and it would do something weird with Magnifier and not log me in. They fixed that. In Windows, in a later build of Windows 10, the Magnifier stopped doing the magnifying glass thing that I talked about. I don't know if that's a feature they added or if that's actually a bug, but I'm going to consider it a bug. But yeah, that's the thing that happens. And, you know, I'm sure there were others that I've forgotten about since they've been fixed, but either way, the magnifier has been broken in some way in every single version of Windows since Windows 10. How? I have no idea, because what would they have been modifying magnifier? What would they have been doing to magnifier in these builds of Windows, other than updating its UI? Which, quite frankly, I think they shouldn't have needed to. If you're not going to update disk management, or sound control panel, or WinVer, or the run dialog, why are you breaking magnifier? It worked perfectly fine in Windows 7. You didn't need to do anything else with it. Except for maybe built it into the File Explorer, or not File Explorer, the desktop window manager, and not make it its own program. But, you know, wouldn't be Windows if you didn't have Windows. And as always, I'm Michael. I hope you learned something, and hope you're just as infuriated as I am at some of these UI issues of Windows. A lot of it's very petty if you're not blind, but these are the things that cause me accessibility problems, and they should not be overlooked. And with that said, as always, hope you learned something, hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. In the next video, we're going to be back on the Mac. I cannot wait. I'm so tired of Windows. See you guys later.